that's a big part of the reason why we haven't done an update in a while. For the past month or so, Kira's symptoms and overall health have been struggling. We're not sure whether that's due to her condition just getting worse, or she's had a pretty gnarly cold and maybe that's it. We're not actually sure, but we realized that there's no reason that we can put out an update and keep you informed, so let's get started. The first thing we want to be clear on is that there haven't really been many updates from Mayo. There's one interesting thing that we'll talk about later in the video, but in terms of neurologic and cardiologic health, we're starting to work with our doctors in Colorado about that, but no real news on that front. The second thing, very exciting, is of course Kira is getting a puppy that we're going to be training as a service dog, both with her training and working with some professional trainers. The puppies have been born. We're going to get pictures when they're about 3 weeks old, which will happen in around next week. And then at around 5 or 6 weeks, we'll be going down with a trainer and doing selection of the dog. So hopefully in around a month, we'll have pictures of our puppy, and then we'll be getting the puppy in April. So look forward to that. There should be some really adorable puppy photos and videos coming up over the next month or so. The thing that we're going to talk about most of the video on is we heard from the geneticist at Mayo, and there's some pretty interesting stuff. So before we get into that, Kira talked to me a lot about genetic vocabulary because it turns out I haven't done biology since 9th grade. So we're going to go over some vocab real quick so we can talk about what her genetic information actually is, because it's super interesting to us as science dorks. So the first thing we want to talk about is chromosomes. You have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and each chromosome is made up of a P and a Q, which are the short and long parts, respectively, of each chromosome. So if we want to talk about the long part of your 13th chromosome, we can talk about 13q. The other thing we're going to talk about is genotypes and phenotypes. The genotype is just the genes that you have, and then the phenotype is how they express themselves. So the usual example is hair color. You have a particular hair color in your genes, and then you actually have the hair color, which is your genotype and your phenotype. So in Kira's case, there are 2 mutations. The first one we knew about, Kira has cat-eye syndrome, which affects her 22nd chromosome, and one of the things typically associated with it, where it gets its name, is coloboma, which is a misforming of the iris that can lead to kind of cat-eye looking irises. But in Kira's case, we know that on 22q, there is a duplicated translocation and a supernumerary chromosome. So let's unpack that. Duplication, this just means that the same genetic information is occurring like more than once. Translocation, in this case, means not necessarily within the 22nd chromosome, but it's actually copied from the 5th chromosome. So you have a 5th to 22nd translocation, and then supernumerary chromosomes. And it looks like it's about 0.5% of people, you get these extra chromosomes kind of hanging out around the 23rd chromosome. They're little bits of extra information that occur in kind of a small section of people, but all of that is consistent with cat-eye syndrome, which we already knew she had. We learned some cool details about what it looked like in her, though. So the more interesting one is, it sounds way less exciting than cat-eye syndrome. There's a duplication in her 5p. And the duplication is even quite a bit smaller. It's about 1/4 the number of genes as her 22q mutation. But the way the geneticist described it is that the phenotype has not been described. So what we mean by that is not this geneticist hasn't seen it or her and her colleagues haven't seen it. We mean that the scientific literature, right, like the body of scientific research, has not described this phenotype. If you think about that, in some ways it's not surprising. if you look at how many genes we have, how many ways they can be ordered, we don't know what the vast majority of those will result in, simply because there's so many combinations. But when you look at an individual, when we say we don't know the phenotype, you can look at like hair color. We know what genes are associated with hair color because we can get a group of people who have that hair color together. We can look at their genetic information and we can see this gene in common and go, oh, you all have this hair color gene. When you're looking at a mutation in one person, then you can't really determine the phenotype because you don't have a statistically significant group of people to compare with and go, well, this must be the one. This must be the phenotype for this gene. In some ways, that's obviously disheartening. It says we don't know what this mutation does. As the geneticist said, it could very well be impacting her condition, or it could not. We can't say. But since Kira and I are science dorks, we also look at it and think that that's pretty cool to have this genetic mutation that's not described in the literature, that's not been researched. That's kind of cool, and it also suggests the possibility that we might be able to get involved with research on this. And that brings me to my final point. It's not clear where this will go, but Kira and I have found out about something called the Undiagnosed Disease Network, which is a network of patients and doctors who are doing research into undiagnosed diseases. And they aren't that large. They don't accept that large of a percentage of people who apply to them. But we also think that having gone through all the testing we've done, having gone through our trip to Mayo Clinic, having a ton of information already on her, and the doctors at Mayo being left kind of scratching their heads, to us that suggests that there's real research potential, especially when you look at the genetic information that we've gotten. So for the time being, our immediate priority is getting ready for puppy and making sure that the apartment will be good and making sure that Khan has a place that he can go away from the puppy. But over the next couple months, we'll be applying to that, and if anything happens, we'll obviously keep you posted. So thank you for joining me, and hopefully next time it'll be Kira, but have a great day. Bye!